Push! Yes!
I'm sitting here, 2 years after my son's death, holding his phone in my trembling hands. The phone that revealed the truth too late. The phone that proved Benjamin was innocent, that he was trying to save me, that he died a hero while the world thought he was a villain. The guilt is crushing. It sits on my chest like a boulder, making it hard to breathe, hard to think, hard to exist. My son spent his final months gathering evidence against his wife and his mother, recording their conspiracy, preparing to expose them and protect me. And I repaid him by calling the police, by assuming he was guilty, by setting in motion the events that led to an officer shooting him on my driveway. He died thinking I had betrayed him. That's the part that destroys me most. In his final moments, surrounded by police, holding the weapon he meant to give me as evidence, he must have realized I was the one who called them. He must have known I suspected him, didn't trust him, assumed the worst about him. And now he's gone. Forever gone. And I have to live with what I did for the rest of my life. Before I continue with what happened next, I need you to do something for me. If you've been following this story, if you've made it this far through parts 1 and 2, please subscribe to Precify Stories right now. Click that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because what I'm about to tell you will blow your mind. This story takes turns you will never see coming. Hit the like button if this story has made you feel something, and comment your country below. I need to know you're out there, that someone is listening, that I'm not alone in this nightmare. Do that now before we continue, because you will not believe what happens next. Now, let me tell you about the year after I discovered Benjamin's innocence. The year I thought would be about healing, but turned into something I never could have anticipated. I couldn't let go of Benjamin. I know Charlotte wanted me to move on, wanted me to heal and live in the present. But how could I? My son had died trying to save me, and the world thought he was dangerous. The news articles, the think pieces, the online discussions, they all painted him as either a tragic figure or a potential threat. No one knew the truth except me, Charlotte, and the stepchildren. So I created a space for him. A memorial, I suppose, though that word feels too formal for what it was. I took his belongings, his phone, photographs of him from childhood through adulthood, and I arranged them on a table in my study. It became my shrine to Benjamin, my place to sit and talk to him, to apologize over and over for not trusting him, to tell him all the things I wished I had said when he was alive. Charlotte hated it. At first, she was gentle about it. "Richard, honey, maybe it's not healthy to surround yourself with reminders of the tragedy. Maybe we should pack these things away for now, and you can look at them when you're in a better place emotionally." "I need this," I told her. "I need to remember him. I need to keep his memory alive." "I understand that," she said softly. "But dwelling on the past isn't helping you heal. You're not sleeping. You're barely eating. You're withdrawing from life. Maybe if we put these things in storage." "No," I said firmly. "This stays. Benjamin stays." She backed off then, but I could see the frustration in her eyes. Over the following months, she brought it up again and again, each time more insistent that I needed to move forward and let go. "It's been 6 months, Richard. You can't spend the rest of your life in this study, talking to photographs." "It's been 8 months. Don't you think it's time to start living again?" "Richard, it's almost a year. This isn't healthy." "The therapist said—" I stopped listening to what the therapist supposedly said, because I had never actually spoken to a therapist. She kept telling me what the therapist recommended, but I had never gone to therapy. When I pointed this out, she said she meant the grief counselor she had consulted on my behalf, the one she talked to about how to help me. It felt strange that she was talking to someone about my grief, instead of encouraging me to talk to someone directly. But I was too deep in my depression to question it much. Then, about 10 months after Benjamin's death, I noticed Charlotte actively trying to remove items from the memorial when she thought I wasn't looking. I came into my study one afternoon and found her holding Benjamin's phone, about to put it in a box. "What are you doing?" I asked sharply. She jumped, clearly not expecting me. "Richard, I thought maybe we could pack some of these things away. Not get rid of them, just store them. Give you some breathing room in here." "I don't want breathing room. I want Benjamin's things where I can see them." "But Richard, this room has become like a tomb. You spend all your time in here staring at these objects, talking to yourself. It's not healthy. So you're just going to take his things without asking me?" "I'm trying to help you," she said, her voice rising with frustration. "You're stuck, Richard. You're not moving forward. You're not healing. You're just sitting in this room, drowning in guilt over something you couldn't control." I got my son shot. I called the police on an innocent man, and he died because of me. That's not something I just move forward from. "It was a tragic accident," Charlotte said, softening her tone. "You didn't know he was innocent. You were trying to protect yourself based on the evidence you had. You have to forgive yourself, Richard." "I can't," I said simply. "And I need you to stop trying to make me forget him. This memorial stays." She left the room without another word, and I could hear her in the kitchen on the phone, speaking in low, urgent tones to someone, probably Samuel or one of the other children, talking about how worried they were about me. Around the same time Charlotte started pushing harder for me to remove Benjamin's memorial, the stepchildren began acting strangely too. They had always been affectionate, always made me feel loved and welcomed into their family, but suddenly their attention became excessive, overwhelming, almost suffocating. Samuel, who had moved back home after graduating college to work at the Vincent Coleman Center, started spending every evening with me. He would sit in my study, whether I wanted company or not, talking constantly about his day, about the kids at the center, about anything and everything except Benjamin. "Dad, you should come visit the center tomorrow," he said one evening, sitting in the chair across from my desk while I tried to read Benjamin's old emails. "The kids have been asking about you. They miss you." "Maybe next week," I said, not looking up. "You said that last week and the week before. Dad, you haven't been to the center in 3 months. The staff is worried about you." "I'll go when I'm ready." "When will that be? Because it seems like you're never going to be ready. It seems like you're planning to just sit in this room forever mourning someone who's gone." I looked up at him sharply. "Someone who's gone? That's my son you're talking about. Your brother figure. The man who died trying to protect me."
"I know that," Samuel said quickly. "I'm sorry, that came out wrong. I just mean that Benjamin wouldn't want you to stop living. He'd want you to keep going, to keep doing the work you love, to keep being there for the people who need you." "And how would you know what Benjamin would want?" I asked, my voice hard. "You barely knew him. You met him a handful of times. Don't presume to know what he would think or feel." Samuel looked hurt, but he didn't leave. He just kept sitting there, kept trying to engage me in conversation, kept pushing me to leave the study and rejoin the family. Amelia started doing it too. She would come home from law school on weekends and immediately seek me out, hugging me tightly, telling me how much she loved me, how grateful she was to have me as a father. "Dad, I love you so much," she said one Saturday morning, wrapping her arms around me from behind as I sat at my desk. "I hope you know that. I hope you know how important you are to us." "I know, sweetheart," I said, patting her arm. "Do you? Because sometimes I worry you think you're alone. But you're not alone, Dad. You have us. You have Mom. You have this whole family who loves you." "I appreciate that, Amelia." "Then show us," she said, her voice taking on an edge. "Show us you love us back by being present, by eating meals with us, by talking to us about something other than Benjamin, by living, Dad. Just live." Olivia, who was usually so quiet and reserved, became clingy in a way that felt unnatural for her. She would find excuses to be in whatever room I was in, sitting nearby, watching me with concerned eyes, asking repeatedly if I was okay. "Dad, are you okay?" she would ask multiple times a day. "I'm fine, Olivia." "Are you sure? Because you don't seem fine. You seem really sad." "I am sad. My son died." "I know, but it's been almost a year. Don't you think it's time to start feeling a little better?" The question made me angry, as if grief had a timeline, as if I should be over it by some arbitrary deadline. But I knew Olivia was young and didn't understand, so I tried to be patient. "Grief doesn't have a schedule, honey. I'll feel better when I feel better." "But Mom is worried about you. We're all worried about you." "I know, but I'm okay. I promise." Even Emma, who was only 11 years old, seemed to be performing concern that felt coached rather than genuine. She would climb into my lap, something she hadn't done in years, and tell me elaborate stories about her day, clearly trying to distract me from my thoughts. "Dad, guess what happened at school today? There was this really funny thing in math class, and..." She would go on, and when I didn't react enthusiastically enough, I could see disappointment flash across her face before she tried harder, her cheer becoming more forced, her stories becoming more exaggerated. It felt wrong. All of it felt wrong. The excessive attention, the constant monitoring, the way they all seemed to be working together to pull me away from Benjamin's memory and push me toward moving on. I started to feel suffocated. Every time I turned around, someone was there watching me, asking if I was okay, telling me they loved me, trying to engage me in forced cheerfulness. The house that had once felt like a haven began to feel like a cage. And I had no one to talk about it. Charlotte had become my whole world after Benjamin's death. Her children had become my family. I had let my friendships from work lapse. I had stopped going to the Vincent Coleman Center. I had isolated myself so completely that there was literally no one outside of my immediate household I could confide in. So I just endured it. I endured Charlotte's increasingly insistent suggestions that I pack away Benjamin's things. I endured the stepchildren's overwhelming, suffocating attention. I endured the feeling that something was very wrong, but having no way to articulate what it was. Then, about 11 months after Benjamin's death, I started noticing other things. Small things at first, easy to dismiss as my imagination or paranoia. I would come home and find Charlotte and all 4 children in the kitchen, speaking in low voices that would cut off abruptly when I entered. They would all turn to me with bright smiles, too bright, too quick. "Oh, Richard, we were just talking about dinner plans." "Dad, we were discussing planning a family vacation." But their body language was wrong. They looked guilty, caught, like children who had been planning something they shouldn't. I started to notice them watching me, not in a concerned, loving way, but in an assessing way, calculating. When I would leave a room, I would sometimes turn back and catch them all looking at each other, having some kind of silent conversation with their eyes. Financial irregularities started appearing. I handled most of our household finances, had access to all our accounts. I noticed small withdrawals that I couldn't account for. When I asked Charlotte about them, she had explanations that sounded reasonable, but felt off. "Oh, that was for Emma's school trip, remember?" But I didn't remember Emma having a school trip. And when I asked Emma about it later, she looked confused before quickly agreeing that yes, there had been a trip. She must have forgotten to tell me about it. Documents in my study would be moved. Not obviously, but slightly. Things that had been in one pile would be in another. Benjamin's phone, which I kept on the memorial table, would be at a slightly different angle than I remembered leaving it. "Did you move things on my desk?" I asked Charlotte one evening. "No, of course not. Why would I do that?" "Some of my papers are in different positions." Maybe you moved them and forgot. You've been very distracted lately. Was I? Was I forgetting things, or was she gaslighting me? Then came the will. Charlotte brought it up casually one evening at dinner, with all 4 children present. Richard, honey, I was thinking we should probably update our wills. It's been a few years since you revised yours, and with everything that's happened with Benjamin, you probably need to make some changes. What kind of changes? I asked cautiously. Well, Benjamin was your primary beneficiary after me, right? Now that he's gone, you need to designate who gets what. I assume you'll want to make sure the children are taken care of. I already have provisions for all of you in my will.
Yes, but maybe they should be more specific now, more generous. I mean, these are your children, Richard. They've been there for you through everything. They deserve to know they'll be secure. Something about the way she said it made my skin crawl. They deserve to know they'll be secure, as if my death was something being planned for, rather than something that might happen in the distant future. I'll think about it, I said noncommittally. We should probably meet with the lawyers soon, Charlotte pressed. Get everything formalized. Make sure there are no complications if something were to happen to you. If something were to happen to me, I repeated. What do you think is going to happen to me? Nothing, she said quickly. I just mean, you're 50 years old now, Richard. It's responsible to have these things in order. Estate planning is important. Samuel jumped in then. Mom's right, Dad. You've been through so much stress. You should make sure everything is documented properly, for your peace of mind. They were all looking at me expectantly. Charlotte, Samuel, Amelia, Olivia, Emma, all waiting for me to agree to update my will, to put things in order, to make sure they would be secure. I'll call the lawyer next week, I lied, just to end the conversation. But I didn't call the lawyer. Instead, I started watching them more carefully, and the more I watched, the more things I noticed. Charlotte was on her phone constantly, texting someone. When I would ask who she was talking to, she always had an explanation. Just coordinating with the school about Emma's schedule, checking in with Amelia's professors about her law school recommendations, helping Samuel organize a fundraiser for the center. But she would angle her phone away from me when she typed. She would leave the room to take certain calls. She would sometimes have conversations where she clearly didn't want me to overhear. The children were the same way. I would hear them in their rooms, voices low and urgent, clearly discussing something they didn't want me to know about. When I would knock and enter, they would scatter, suddenly finding reasons to be elsewhere. What were you all talking about? I asked Samuel one evening, after finding all 4 of them huddled in his room. Nothing important, he said quickly. Just sibling stuff. We were planning a surprise for Mom's birthday. Her birthday isn't for 4 months. We like to plan ahead, he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. I started having trouble sleeping. I would lie awake at night, Charlotte breathing peacefully beside me, and I would think about all the small oddities I had noticed. Individually, they meant nothing. Together, they formed a pattern that terrified me. But a pattern of what? What could Charlotte and the children possibly be hiding from me? What could they be planning? The paranoid part of my brain whispered dark possibilities, that they were trying to drive me crazy, that they wanted my money, that they were planning something terrible. But the rational part of my brain said I was being ridiculous. These people loved me. Charlotte had stood by me through the worst period of my life. Her children had embraced me as their father. They had all been traumatized by Benjamin's death too. They were probably just worried about me and trying to figure out how to help. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. 13 months after Benjamin's death, I made a decision. I went to see Raymond Cooper, the private investigator who had followed Benjamin before his death, the man who had photographed him receiving the weapon from Isabella, the man whose work had contributed to the police response that ended my son's life. I hadn't spoken to Raymond since Benjamin died. Couldn't bear to, honestly. Every time I saw him, I was reminded of my role in the tragedy. But I needed someone outside my household, someone who could give me an objective perspective on whether I was being paranoid or if my concerns were valid.
Raymond's office was in a rundown building downtown. When I walked in, he looked surprised to see me. "Mr. Brooks," he said, standing up from his desk, "I didn't expect to hear from you again. How are you holding up?" "I'm not well," I admitted. "Raymond, I need your help, but I need to know that what I tell you stays confidential. I need to know that you won't go to anyone else with this information unless I tell you to." "Of course," he said, gesturing for me to sit. "Client confidentiality. Whatever you tell me stays between us." I sat down and took a deep breath. Then I told him everything. The excessive attention from Charlotte and the children, the financial irregularities, the pressure to update my will, the feeling of being watched and monitored, the whispered conversations that stopped when I entered rooms. Raymond listened without interrupting, taking notes occasionally. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair and studied me. "Mr. Brooks, I'm going to be honest with you. What you're describing could be innocent. Your family might just be worried about you and trying to help. The financial irregularities could be legitimate expenses you're not aware of. The pressure to update your will might just be practical estate planning." "But," I prompted, because I could hear the but coming. "But," he continued, "it could also be something more concerning. The pattern you're describing, the timing of it, the way everyone seems to be working together, that raises some red flags for me." "What kind of red flags?" I asked. "The kind that suggests someone might be grooming you for something, isolating you, making you dependent on them while they position themselves to benefit from that dependency." "You think Charlotte is using me?" I asked, the words feeling like poison in my mouth. "I think it's worth looking into," Raymond said carefully. "Mr. Brooks, I'm going to be blunt. You're a wealthy man. After the settlement with the Vincent Coleman Center, after your investments, you're worth somewhere in the neighborhood of $40 to $50 million. That's a lot of motivation for someone who might not have your best interests at heart. Charlotte knew I had money when she married me. That's not new information." "True, but maybe she's getting impatient. Maybe something has changed. Or maybe I'm completely wrong, and your family is exactly what they appear to be, people who love you and are worried about you. How do we find out which it is?" "You let me dig a little," Raymond said. "Discreetly. I can look into Charlotte's background, the children's backgrounds, see if anything raises concerns. I can monitor their activities, check their financial records if you give me authorization, see if there's anything that doesn't add up." I thought about it. It felt like a betrayal to investigate my own wife and stepchildren, but it had felt like a betrayal to investigate Benjamin, too, and that ended in tragedy. Maybe this time I could get ahead of whatever was happening before it was too late.
"Do it," I said. "But Raymond, be very discreet. If they find out I'm investigating them—" "They won't," he promised. "I'll be a ghost. They'll never know I'm looking." I left Raymond's office feeling both relieved to have taken action and guilty for suspecting the people I lived with. I told myself I was probably wrong, that Raymond would come back in a few weeks and tell me everything was fine, that I had been paranoid for nothing. I should have known better. After everything I had been through, after all the lies and betrayals and hidden truths, I should have trusted my instincts when they told me something was wrong. Because something was very, very wrong. Raymond worked quickly. Within 2 weeks, he called me to come to his office. "I found something," he said on the phone, his voice grim. "You need to see this in person." I went to his office, my heart pounding with dread. Raymond had files spread across his desk, documents and photographs and printed records. "Mr. Brooks," he said seriously, "I need to ask you something. When Charlotte told you about her late husband, about how he passed away from a heart attack, did she ever show you death certificates, obituaries, any proof?" "No," I said slowly. "I took her word for it. Why?" "Because Mitchell Foster didn't die of a heart attack," Raymond said. "In fact, Mitchell Foster never existed at all. There's no death certificate, no obituary, no record of anyone by that name ever being married to a woman named Charlotte Foster." I stared at him. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying your wife lied to you about her past. And it gets worse. The children, Samuel, Amelia, Olivia, and Emma, they're not all her biological children. In fact, based on what I can find, none of them might be. That's impossible, I said. I've seen pictures of them as babies. Charlotte has told me stories about their childhoods. Pictures can be faked, stories can be made up. Mr. Brooks, I ran background checks on all 5 of them, and there are holes in their histories, big holes, periods where I can't find any records of them existing, name changes, different addresses that don't match the story you were told. He pushed a file across the desk to me. There's more. I found financial records that show Charlotte has been moving money. Small amounts at first, but larger now, and she's been in contact with someone I think you'll recognize. He showed me a photograph. It was slightly grainy, taken from a distance, but clear enough. Charlotte sitting in a coffee shop with another woman. The other woman was Sophia, Benjamin's widow, the woman who had plotted with Isabella to harm me. When was this taken? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. 3 days ago, Raymond said. They met for coffee, talked for about an hour, and from their body language, this wasn't their first meeting. Mr. Brooks, I think Charlotte and Sophia know each other. I think they've been working together. The room seemed to tilt. Working together to do what? I don't know yet, but whatever it is, it's not good. And there's one more thing you need to know. He pulled out another file, this one thicker. I kept digging into Charlotte's past, trying to find out who she really is, and I found something that's going to shock you. About 15 years ago, there was a wealthy man named Vincent Coleman who lost his 2 children in a car accident. I know, I said. Vincent told me about it. It destroyed him. What he might not have told you, Raymond continued, is that the accident was suspicious. Police investigated it as a potential homicide. They suspected the children's stepmother might have tampered with their car. Her name at the time was Charlotte Reynolds. My blood ran cold. Charlotte Reynolds? She was questioned extensively, but never charged. Insufficient evidence. She had only been married to Vincent Coleman for 6 months at that point, not long enough to inherit much if something happened to him. After the children died, Vincent refused to have anything to do with her, divorced him immediately, gave his inheritance to someone else instead. Raymond looked at me meaningfully. He gave it to you, Mr. Brooks. No, I whispered. No, that's not possible. Charlotte wouldn't orchestrate the deaths of 2 children to get to their father's money? Wouldn't track down the man who ended up with that money and seduce him so she could finally get what she thought she deserved? I couldn't breathe. The woman I had married, the woman I had trusted with my life, with my heart, with my grief over Benjamin, was the woman who had taken Vincent's children from him? The same woman who had played grieving widow to worm her way into my life? We need to call the police, Raymond said, right now. This is beyond what I can handle as a private investigator. If Charlotte and Sophia are working together, if they're planning something, you might be in danger. I need to go home, I said, standing unsteadily. I need to see if this is real. Maybe there's some explanation. Mr. Brooks, please don't go home, not until we've contacted the authorities. If these women are as dangerous as I think they are. But I was already heading for the door. I needed to see Charlotte's face when I confronted her. I needed to know if the woman I loved was real, or if she was just another con, another betrayal, another knife in my already bleeding heart. I drove home in a daze, Raymond's revelations echoing in my head. Charlotte had taken Vincent's children. Charlotte had tracked me down. Charlotte had been working with Sophia. Everything had been a lie. When I pulled into my driveway, there were 3 police cars parked on the street. My first thought was that Raymond had called them anyway, had reported what he found, and they had beaten me home. But then I saw officers leading Charlotte out of my house in handcuffs. She was shouting, struggling, but they held her firm. Behind her came Samuel, also in handcuffs, then Amelia, then Olivia, then Emma. All 5 of them, my entire family being arrested right in front of me.
I got out of my car feeling like I was moving through water, everything slow and surreal. An officer approached me. "Mr. Brooks? I'm Officer Mitchell. We need you to come with us to the station. We have some things we need to discuss with you." "What's happening?" I asked, as they loaded Charlotte into one police car and the children into another. "Why are they being arrested?" "We'll explain everything at the station, sir. Please, if you'll come with us." I got into the police car, numbed with shock. As we pulled away from my house, I looked back to see Charlotte watching me through the rear window of the car ahead. Her face, which had always been so warm and loving, was twisted with rage.
At the police station, they led me to an interview room. I sat there for what felt like hours, but was probably only 20 minutes before Detective Parker came in. The same Detective Parker who had investigated Benjamin's death. "Mr. Brooks," she said, sitting across from me, "I know you must be confused about what's happening." "That's an understatement," I said. "Why did you arrest my wife and stepchildren?" "Because we've been investigating them for several months now," she said, "and today we finally had enough evidence to move forward with arrests." "Evidence of what?" I asked, though part of me already knew. "Conspiracy to commit fraud, conspiracy to commit murder, identity fraud, financial crimes. Mr. Brooks, your wife isn't who you think she is, and neither are her children." "I know," I said quietly. "My private investigator just told me about Vincent's children, about Charlotte being questioned but never charged." "Then you know she's done this before," Detective Parker said. "What you don't know is how extensive her operation is. Mr. Brooks, Charlotte Foster has been running cons for over 20 years. The children you think are teenagers and young adults, they're not. They're adults in their late 20s and 30s who work with her. They find wealthy, vulnerable men, and they drain them of everything they have." I felt sick. "How long has she been planning this with me?" "Since before you met her," Detective Parker said gently. "She knew about Vincent's inheritance going to you. She researched you, found out about your situation with Benjamin, and she positioned herself to be exactly what you needed at exactly the right time. The widow who understood loss," I said bitterly. "The woman with children who needed a father. The perfect package to make me fall in love." "Yes," Detective Parker confirmed. "But Mr. Brooks, there's something else, something you need to know. We have Sophia Parker in custody as well." "Sophia? Benjamin's widow?" "Yes, because Charlotte and Sophia have been working together. In fact, they've known each other for years." I looked up at her, confused. "But how? How would they have known each other?" "That's what we need to explain to you," Detective Parker said. "And Mr. Brooks, I'm going to warn you now. What I'm about to tell you is going to change everything you think you know about the past 3 years of your life." She opened a file and pulled out several photographs. Photographs of Charlotte and Sophia together, clearly taken over multiple years. Photographs of Charlotte and Isabella together. Photographs of all 3 women together, smiling, planning, conspiring. "These women have been working together for a long time," Detective Parker said, "and you, Mr. Brooks, have been their target from the very beginning." I stared at the photographs spread across the table in front of me. Charlotte and Sophia at a coffee shop, their heads close together, clearly plotting something. Charlotte and Isabella at what looked like a restaurant, both smiling, both comfortable with each other like old friends. And the most damning photo of all 3 women together, Charlotte, Sophia, and Isabella, sitting in someone's living room, documents spread on a coffee table between them, looking like business partners closing a deal. "I don't understand," I said, my voice barely working. "When were these taken? How long have they known each other?" The earliest photo we have of Charlotte and Isabella together is about 8 years ago. But based on their communications, which we were able to access after obtaining warrants, they've known each other much longer than that, possibly 15 or 20 years. 20 years, I repeated numbly. But Benjamin only met Sophia 6 years ago. Isabella disappeared from his life when he was 6 months old 27 years ago. I know this is difficult to process, Detective Parker said gently. Let me start from the beginning and explain everything we've discovered. It's going to take a while, and some of what I tell you is going to be very hard to hear. But you deserve to know the truth about what's been done to you. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. My hands were shaking, so I folded them in my lap to hide the tremor. Let's start with Charlotte, Detective Parker began. The woman you married, the woman you know as Charlotte Foster, that's not her real name. She's used at least a dozen different names over the past 25 years. Charlotte Reynolds, Charlotte Bennett, Charlotte Sullivan. She changes her identity every few years, always choosing names from a rotating list. Why? I asked. Because she's a professional con artist, Detective Parker said bluntly. And a very good one. She's been running variations of the same scam for over 20 years, targeting wealthy, vulnerable men. The setup is always similar. She creates a persona as a grieving widow with children. She befriends the Mark when he's emotionally vulnerable. She becomes indispensable to him, and then she marries him. Once she's married and positioned to inherit, the Mark either dies under suspicious circumstances or is drained of his assets and abandoned. How many men? I asked, feeling sick. That we know of? At least 7 before you. Maybe more. She's been very careful over the years, always staying just on the right side of provable criminal activity. Until now. She pulled out a file and opened it. Her real name, as far as we can determine, is Charlotte Morgan. She grew up in foster care, aged out of the system at 18, and fell into criminal activity almost immediately. She's smart, Mr. Brooks. Exceptionally smart. She learned early on that the best way to make money was to find men who had it and take it from them. The children, Samuel, Amelia, Olivia, and Emma. You said they're not really her children. Correct. They're her crew, her accomplices. Samuel's real name is Samuel Mitchell. He's 32 years old, not 19. Amelia is Amelia Cooper, 29, not 16. Olivia is actually Olivia Bennett, 27, not 13. And Emma is Emma Parker, 25, not 11. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. But Emma looks like a child. She's small. She acts young. She has a condition that makes her appear younger than she is, Detective Parker explained. Some kind of growth disorder. Charlotte recruited her specifically because of it. Emma can pass for a preteen easily, which makes the whole grieving widow with children persona more believable and sympathetic. So all of it was a lie, I said hollowly. Everything. Their ages, their personalities, their affection for me. All of it was just part of the con. Yes, Detective Parker confirmed. Each of them has a specific role. Samuel plays the responsible oldest son, the one who can engage the Mark in serious conversations and monitor his business dealings. Amelia plays the ambitious middle child, creating a sense of pride and accomplishment for the Mark. Olivia plays the quiet, artist one, appearing vulnerable and in need of protection. And Emma plays the youngest, the innocent one, who tugs at heartstrings and makes the Mark feel needed. They've been doing this for years. About 6 years for this particular crew. Charlotte recruits people carefully, trains them, and then they work together on multiple cons. They're very good at what they do, Mr. Brooks. Before you, they successfully conned 2 other men out of a combined total of about $12 million. I closed my eyes, trying to process this. The family I had loved, the family I had grieved Benjamin with, the family I had built a life with, none of them were real. They were actors, playing roles, all to steal from me. Now let's talk about the Vincent Coleman connection, Detective Parker continued, because that's where this all really begins. She pulled out another file, this one containing old newspaper clippings and police reports. 15 years ago, Vincent Coleman was a wealthy businessman with 2 adult children, a son named Benjamin Coleman and a daughter named Sophia Coleman. I looked up sharply. His daughter was named Sophia? Yes. Benjamin would have been about 27 at the time, and Sophia was about 24. Vincent's wife had passed away a few years earlier, and he was lonely. He met a woman named Charlotte Reynolds at a charity event. She was charming, attentive, sympathetic about his loss. They dated for 6 months, and he married her. Detective Parker laid out photographs of a younger Charlotte, unmistakably the same woman but with different hair, standing next to Vincent at what looked like their wedding. Charlotte became Vincent's wife, but she quickly realized that his children weren't going to accept her. They saw her for what she was, a gold digger after their father's money. They convinced Vincent to keep his assets separate, to not put Charlotte on any accounts, to protect his wealth. Charlotte couldn't touch a penny unless Vincent gave it to her, and his children made sure he was cautious about that. So she eliminated them, I said, understanding dawning with horror. We believe so. 6 months after the wedding, Vincent's children were involved in a fatal car accident. Their vehicle went off a bridge late at night. Both of them passed away instantly. Detective Parker paused, letting that sink in. Police investigated it thoroughly because the circumstances were suspicious. The car had been serviced recently and was in perfect condition. The road was straight and well maintained. The weather was clear. There was no reason for the car to suddenly veer off the road unless someone had tampered with it. Charlotte? Charlotte was the prime suspect. She had the motive and the opportunity, but they couldn't prove anything. No physical evidence directly linking her to any tampering. No witnesses. She claimed she was home that evening, and there was no way to prove otherwise. The case went cold. What did Vincent do? I asked. Vincent wasn't stupid. He might not have been able to prove Charlotte was responsible, but he suspected. He divorced her immediately, changed his will to make sure she would never inherit anything from him, and then he spent the next few years looking for someone worthy to leave his estate to. Someone like me, I said. Someone exactly like you, Detective Parker confirmed. Vincent told you his story about finding you after you returned his wallet, about seeing you as a son figure. All of that was true. What he might not have told you was that he was also motivated by spite. He wanted to make sure that when he passed away, his money went to someone good, someone who would use it well, someone Charlotte could never touch. But she found out, I said. She found out, Detective Parker agreed. When Vincent died and his will became public record, Charlotte learned that he had left everything to you. $55 million that she had planned for, schemed for, possibly even taken 2 lives for, and it all went to some young single father she had never heard of. So she came after me. Not immediately. First, she investigated you. She spent about a year learning everything about you. Your history with Benjamin, your relationship with Vincent, your financial situation, your personality, your vulnerabilities. She planned her approach carefully. Detective Parker pulled out more documents. She learned about Benjamin's wedding. She learned that Isabella, Benjamin's biological mother, had abandoned him as a baby, and that gave her an idea. Isabella, I said. The pieces starting to come together in my mind. Isabella Morgan. who, despite the different last name, is actually Charlotte's sister. Sister? Half-sister, technically. They share a mother but had different fathers. Both grew up in the foster system, both aged out at 18, both turned to criminal activity. They've been working together off and on for 20 years, running various scams and cons. When Charlotte learned about you and Benjamin, she reached out to Isabella with a proposition. Detective Parker laid out a timeline, pointing to dates and events. Isabella was the one who approached Benjamin's fiancée, Sophia, at a local coffee shop about 8 months before their wedding. It seemed like a chance encounter, but it was carefully orchestrated. Isabella befriended Sophia, learned about her upcoming marriage to Benjamin, learned about Benjamin's estrangement from his mother. And she told Sophia who she was? Eventually, yes. After gaining Sophia's trust, Isabella revealed that she was Benjamin's biological mother. She spun a story about wanting to reconnect with her son, about regretting abandoning him, about wanting to be part of his life again. Sophia, seeing an opportunity, encouraged this. Because Sophia was already planning to con Benjamin? Not at first. At first, Sophia genuinely loved Benjamin. She had no ulterior motives. But Isabella is very good at manipulation. She started dropping hints about Benjamin's father being wealthy, about Vincent Coleman's inheritance, about how Benjamin stood to inherit a fortune eventually. She planted seeds of greed in Sophia's mind. I felt sick listening to this. Benjamin had been targeted before he got married. The woman he loved had been corrupted, turned against him, all as a part of a larger scheme. Isabella worked on Sophia for months, convincing her that she deserved that money, that Benjamin's father was selfish for only giving them $5 million instead of $55 million, that they could do so much more with that money if they had access to it all. By the time of the wedding, Sophia was fully on board with the plan. The plan to turn Benjamin against me, I said bitterly. Yes. Isabella showed up at the wedding with a story designed to drive a wedge between you and your son. She wanted Benjamin isolated from you, angry at you, believing the worst about you. That way, when she and Sophia suggested more drastic measures later, Benjamin would be more likely to go along with it. Except he didn't, I said, remembering Benjamin's recordings. Correct. Benjamin was smarter and more loyal than they gave him credit for. But we'll come back to that. First, I need to explain Charlotte's role in all of this. Detective Parker pulled out another file. While Isabella was working on Benjamin and Sophia, Charlotte was working on you. She had positioned herself in a building near your workplace, made sure to accidentally run into you at that coffee shop, started building a friendship. When Benjamin rejected you at the wedding, Charlotte was there to comfort you. When you were at your lowest, she was there to pick you up. Everything was calculated. The children too?
The children too. She chose Samuel because he was close enough in age to Benjamin that she would relate to him, but young enough that she would feel needed. She chose Amelia because she knew you would be proud of an ambitious daughter. Olivia because artistic, sensitive children tug at heartstrings. And Emma because who can resist a sweet young girl who needs a father figure? They played me perfectly, I said, my voice breaking. They played you very well, Detective Parker acknowledged. Charlotte's plan was to marry you, spend a year or two establishing herself in your life, and then either convince you to sign over your assets or arrange an accident. She was patient. She was willing to wait. But then something changed, I said. Yes, the issue with Benjamin's phone. When you discovered the recordings and the emails that proved Benjamin was innocent, that complicated things for both groups. Isabella was arrested, and her involvement with Sophia became known. Charlotte couldn't have that investigation leading back to her, so she had to be very careful. She convinced me that Sophia was released due to insufficient evidence, I said, understanding now.
She convinced me to focus on grieving Benjamin instead of pursuing justice. Exactly. She needed you distracted and discouraged. She needed you to accept that Benjamin was gone and that there would be no justice. Because if you kept pushing, if you kept investigating, you might discover the connections between Isabella, Sophia, and her. Detective Parker leaned forward. Here's where it gets even more twisted, Mr. Brooks. After Isabella was imprisoned and Sophia was released, Charlotte reached out to Sophia with a new plan. They decided to work together more directly. Charlotte would continue her long-term approach with you, slowly positioning herself to inherit everything. Meanwhile, Sophia would sue you for wrongful death, draining your resources and keeping you distracted. The lawsuit, I said. She filed that lawsuit against me, knowing it was all part of a bigger plan. Yes, it served multiple purposes. It kept you stressed and focused on legal battles. It drained your money through legal fees, and it reinforced the narrative that you were responsible for Benjamin's death, making you more vulnerable to Charlotte's manipulation and support. But why the sudden change in behavior, I asked. Why did Charlotte and the children suddenly become so obvious about trying to make me forget Benjamin and update my will? If they had been patient for years, why get sloppy now? Because they learned something that made them panic, Detective Parker said. They learned that we were investigating Isabella, and they were afraid that Isabella, facing 25 years in prison, might try to make a deal by giving us information about her sister, Charlotte. So, they decided to speed up their timeline. Exactly. They needed to get you to update your will in their favor quickly before we could connect the dots. The excessive attention, the pressure to move on from Benjamin, the insistence on seeing a lawyer, all of it was because they were running out of time. I sat there, absorbing all of this. Every relationship I had built after losing Benjamin was a lie. Every moment of comfort Charlotte had provided was manipulation. Every expression of love from the children was an act. Even the lawsuit from Sophia was part of the elaborate scheme. How did you figure all of this out? How did you connect Charlotte to Isabella to Sophia? We got lucky, Detective Parker admitted. Isabella's lawyer tried to negotiate a plea deal. As part of that negotiation, she provided information about her accomplices. She gave us Charlotte's real identity and details about their previous cons. Once we knew who Charlotte really was, we were able to piece together the rest. We put surveillance on her, monitored her communications, and caught her meeting with Sophia multiple times. We built our case carefully over several months. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, feeling a flash of anger. Why did you let me keep living with these people, not knowing what they were? Because we needed evidence that would hold up in court, Detective Parker said firmly. We needed to catch them in the act. If we had told you earlier, you might have confronted them and they would have scattered. We needed them to keep operating, to keep incriminating themselves, so we could build an airtight case. I know that's not what you want to hear, but it was necessary. So what happens now? What are they charged with? Multiple counts, Detective Parker said, ticking them off on her fingers. Conspiracy to commit fraud, identity fraud, wire fraud, grand theft. And in Charlotte's case, we're reopening the investigation into Vincent Coleman's children's deaths. With Isabella's testimony, we might finally be able to prove that Charlotte orchestrated those deaths. Will Isabella really testify against her own sister? I asked skeptically. She's facing 25 years in prison, Mr. Brooks. If testifying against Charlotte can reduce that sentence, she'll do it. Criminals aren't known for their loyalty when their freedom is at stake. Detective Parker closed the files in front of her. There's one more thing you need to know. About Sophia and Benjamin. My heart clenched. What about them? Sophia genuinely married Benjamin with the intention of conning him eventually, but Isabella was the mastermind behind most of the planning. Sophia's role was mostly to keep Benjamin isolated from you and to make sure that he would inherit when the time came. The plan to actively harm you, that was mostly Isabella and Charlotte's idea.
So Sophia was a willing participant, but not the architect. More or less. She's guilty, make no mistake, but she's also a victim of Isabella's manipulation to some degree. Not enough to absolve her of responsibility, but enough to explain how a woman who genuinely seemed to love your son ended up part of such an evil scheme. The triplets, I said. What about them? Are they really Benjamin's children? Yes, Detective Parker confirmed. We've run DNA tests to be sure. Samuel, Albert, and Frederick are definitely Benjamin's biological sons. Sophia had them deliberately to strengthen her position in the con, but they are innocent in all of this. What will happen to them? I asked, my heart breaking for my grandchildren. That will be up to the family courts. With Sophia facing prison time, they'll need a guardian. Sophia's parents are elderly and not in a position to take on 3 toddlers full-time, which means custody will likely go to the next closest relative. Me, I said, understanding. You mean custody would go to me, if you want them. But Mr. Brooks, that's a decision you don't have to make right now. For the moment, they're safe with Sophia's parents. You have time to think about what you want to do. I nodded, overwhelmed by everything I had learned. 3 women working together for years, orchestrating an elaborate scheme to steal Vincent Coleman's inheritance. My son, caught in the crossfire, manipulated and betrayed by the woman he loved. Vincent's own children, possibly taken from him by the same woman who targeted me. And me, the fool, who had fallen for it all, who had married one of the conspirators and let her into every aspect of my life. I need to see them, I said. Charlotte and the others, I need to see them face to face. I don't recommend that, Detective Parker said. It won't give you the closure you're looking for. I don't care about closure, I said, standing up. I need to look them in the eyes. I need them to know that I know the truth. I need that much at least. Detective Parker studied me for a moment, then nodded. Okay, I'll arrange it. But Mr. Brooks, prepare yourself. These people are not going to show remorse. They're going to be angry that they got caught, not sorry for what they did.
She led me down a hallway to a series of interview rooms with one-way glass. We have them separated, she explained. Charlotte is in room 1, Samuel in room 2. The others are in rooms 3, 4, and 5. You can observe through the glass. They can't see or hear you. I looked through the glass into room 1. Charlotte sat at a metal table, her hands cuffed in front of her. She looked different than I had ever seen her. Not warm and loving, not concerned and caring. She looked cold, calculating, angry. Her whole demeanor had changed now that the mask was off. A detective was in the room with her, trying to question her, but Charlotte sat in stony silence, her lawyer beside her occasionally whispering instructions. She's not talking, Detective Parker said. Her lawyer advised her to stay silent, but we don't need her to talk. We have Isabella's testimony, the financial records, the surveillance footage. We have enough. I moved to room 2, where Samuel sat. He looked different too. Not like the earnest young man I had thought I knew. He sat casually, almost bored, occasionally checking his watch like this was an inconvenience rather than an arrest for serious crimes. He's the most experienced of the crew, Detective Parker said. He's done this before, been arrested before. He knows how the system works. He's already talking about pleading to lesser charges. Amelia, in room 3, was crying, but her tears seemed calculated, performed. She was talking to her lawyer animatedly, probably planning her defense strategy already. Olivia, in room 4, sat perfectly still, staring at the wall. Her face was blank, emotionless. I realized I had never actually known what Olivia was feeling. Every emotion I thought I saw from her had been an act, a performance. The real Olivia was a stranger. Emma, in room 5, was perhaps the most jarring. She sat with her arms crossed, her face set in an expression of mature annoyance. The childlike mannerisms were gone, the innocent sweetness had vanished. She looked like what she really was, a 25-year-old woman who had been caught in a con. I want to talk to Charlotte, I said, face to face.
Mr. Brooks, I really don't think. Please, I interrupted. I need this. Detective Parker sighed, but nodded. 5 minutes, that's all I can give you, and I'll be right outside the door. She led me to interview room 1 and opened the door. Charlotte looked up as I entered, and for just a moment I saw surprise flash across her face. Then it was replaced by cold hatred. "Richard," she said, her voice dripping with contempt, nothing like the warm, loving tone I was used to. "Come to gloat?" I sat down across from her, studying the woman I had married. "Who are you?" I asked quietly. "Really?" "Does it matter?" She shot back. "You'll never know the real me, Richard. Everything you think you know is a lie." "I know you targeted me," I said. "I know you spent years planning this. I know you murdered Vincent's children." "Allegedly murdered," her lawyer interjected quickly. Charlotte smiled coldly. "You can't prove anything about that." "Isabella is testifying against you." For the first time, real emotion crossed Charlotte's face. Rage. That... She cut herself off, visibly controlling her anger. "My dear sister always was weak. I should have known she couldn't handle prison time." "Why? Why target me? Why spend years of your life pretending to love me? Why go through all of this?" $55 million, Charlotte said simply. "You took what should have been mine. Vincent promised me that money when we got married. He promised to take care of me. And then his sniveling children poisoned him against me, convinced him I was after his money, and he gave it all to you instead. Some random stranger who did nothing but return a wallet." "So you orchestrated their deaths," I said, the confirmation hanging in the air between us. "I did what was necessary," Charlotte said coldly. "They were in my way, just like your son was eventually going to be in my way." I felt my hands clench into fists. "Benjamin? Oh, please, don't look at me like that. I didn't do anything to your precious Benjamin. That was all Isabella and Sophia's operation. Though, I have to say, it worked out well for me. Your son's death made you so vulnerable, so easy to manipulate. You fell right into my arms, grateful for any comfort I could provide." "You used my grief," I said, my voice shaking with fury. "You used what was available," Charlotte corrected. "That's what I do, Richard. I find wealthy, stupid men, and I take what they have. You're not special. You're just another mark." "The children," I said. "Samuel, Amelia, Olivia, Emma, they were never really part of your family?" "They're my employees," Charlotte said with a shrug. "Highly paid, highly skilled employees. We've worked together for years. They play their parts, I play mine, and we all benefit when the con is successful. Except this time you got caught. This time I got unlucky," Charlotte corrected. "If Isabella had kept her mouth shut like she was supposed to, you'd already be dead, and I'd be inheriting your estate. But she had to go and make deals with the prosecutors, the coward." Her casual mention of my death, as if it was just another business transaction that hadn't worked out, made me feel sick. "I loved you," I said quietly. "I thought we were building a real life together. You loved an illusion. You loved the character I created. The grieving widow, the loving mother, the supportive wife. That person never existed, Richard. I'm the only real thing here, and I'm nothing like the woman you married." "How do you live with yourself?" I asked. "How do you sleep at night knowing you've destroyed so many lives?" "Very well, actually. I sleep on expensive sheets in nice hotels paid for by fools like you, or at least I did until now. You won't see the outside of a prison cell for a long time." "Maybe," Charlotte admitted. "Or maybe my lawyer works his magic and I get a reduced sentence. Either way, Richard, I want you to know something. I don't regret any of it. Not pretending to love you, not using your grief, not planning to take everything from you. You were a means to an end, and I'd do it all again in a heartbeat." Her lawyer cleared his throat uncomfortably, probably wishing his client would stop talking. But Charlotte didn't care. The mask was off completely now. "I hope you rot in prison," I said, standing up. I hope you die alone, Charlotte shot back. Oh, wait, you already are alone. I made sure of that. Your son is dead. Your precious stepchildren were all fake. You have no one, Richard, no one. Except those 3 screaming toddlers you'll probably have to take in. Enjoy your golden years as a single grandfather. I walked out of the room before I did something I would regret. Detective Parker was waiting in the hallway. I'm sorry you had to hear that, she said. I needed to hear it, I said, though my whole body was shaking. I needed to see who she really was. I needed to stop wondering if maybe some small part of what we had was real. And now you know, Detective Parker said gently. Now I know, I agreed. It was all a lie. Every moment, every conversation, every expression of love. All of it was just her playing a role. We walked back to the original interview room. I sat down heavily, feeling exhausted in a way that went deeper than physical tiredness. What happens now? I asked. Now we build our case for trial. We have strong evidence against all of them. Charlotte, Sophia, the 4 crew members. Isabella's testimony will be crucial, especially regarding Vincent Coleman's children's deaths. If we can prove Charlotte orchestrated those deaths, she'll be facing life in prison. And the others? Substantial sentences, 10 to 20 years, depending on their specific roles and whether they cooperate. Mr. Brooks, I know this is overwhelming, but you're going to get justice. These people will pay for what they've done. Justice, I repeated bitterly. What does that even mean? Benjamin is still dead. Vincent's children are still dead. Years of my life were stolen by people pretending to love me. How does putting them in prison fix any of that? It doesn't, Detective Parker admitted. Justice doesn't undo the harm, but it does stop them from doing this to anyone else. Charlotte alone has victimized at least 8 men that we know of. Who knows how many more she would have hurt if we hadn't stopped her? I nodded, understanding the logic, even if it didn't make me feel any better. There's one more thing, Detective Parker said carefully. Something I didn't mention before because I wanted you to hear everything else first. Something about Benjamin. My heart clenched. What about him? Detective Parker looked at me intently, her expression unreadable. Mr. Brooks, there's something very important you need to know. Something that's going to change everything you think you understand about what happened 2 years ago. Just tell me, I said, exhausted. Please just tell me. I can't take any more suspense. It's about Benjamin's death, she said slowly. About what happened that day when the police surrounded him and he reached for the weapon. I know what happened, I said, my voice breaking. I know he was trying to show the police the evidence. I know he was trying to explain. I know he died before he could prove his innocence. That's what we told everyone, Detective Parker said. That's what we told Sophia and Isabella and Charlotte. That's what we told the media. But Mr. Brooks, that's not actually what happened. I stared at her, not understanding. What do you mean? Detective Parker took a deep breath. Richard, your son isn't dead. The words didn't make sense. They couldn't make sense. I stared at Detective Parker, my mind refusing to process what she had just said. What? What did you say? Your son isn't dead, Detective Parker repeated, her voice gentle but firm. Benjamin is alive, Richard. Benjamin has been alive this whole time. I couldn't breathe. The room was spinning. My hands gripped the edge of the table so hard my knuckles turned white. That's not possible, I said, my voice shaking. I saw him. I saw his body on my driveway. I saw the blood. I went to his funeral. I buried him. I've been mourning him for 2 years. I know, Detective Parker said, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry we had to do it this way. But Richard, everything you saw that day was staged. The shooting, the blood, the body, all of it was carefully orchestrated to make everyone believe Benjamin had died. Why? I demanded, anger mixing with confusion and a hope so desperate it hurt. Why would you do that? Why would you let me believe my son was dead? Because we needed the conspirators to believe it too. Let me start from the beginning. About 3 months before Benjamin was supposed to pick up that weapon from Isabella, we were already investigating Charlotte, not in connection with you at that point, but as part of a broader investigation into a series of cons targeting wealthy men. She pulled out yet another file, this one marked with dates from years ago. We'd been tracking Charlotte's crew for a year when we discovered she had married you. We started monitoring her activities, and that's when we discovered the connection to Isabella and Sophia.
We realized they were planning something involving you, and it was likely going to result in your death." "You knew it?" I asked, incredulously creeping into my voice. "You knew Charlotte was dangerous, and you didn't tell me?" "We couldn't tell you without risking the investigation. If we had come to you and told you your wife was a con artist, you might have confronted her. She would have fled, and we would have lost our chance to take down the entire network. We needed to catch them in the act." "So you used me as bait," I said bitterly. "We protected you," Detective Parker corrected firmly. "Every moment, you were under surveillance. We had officers watching your house. We were monitoring all communications. If Charlotte or any of her crew had tried to actually harm you, we would have intervened." "Then why stage Benjamin's death? How does that connect?" "Because we discovered that Benjamin had been gathering evidence against Sophia and Isabella. We intercepted some of his recorded conversations, saw his emails to lawyers. We realized he was trying to protect you, and we knew that if Sophia and Isabella discovered what he was doing, they would harm him." So Detective Parker leaned forward. "So we approached Benjamin. We told him what we knew about the conspiracy against you, about Charlotte's involvement, about how all these women were working together. And we offered him a choice: help us take them all down, or continue on his own and risk being harmed before he could expose them." "He agreed," I said slowly. "He agreed immediately, without hesitation. He said if there was any way to protect you and ensure these women faced justice, he would do whatever it took." So the day he went to get the weapon, we were already there. We had been coordinating with Benjamin for weeks. The plan was for him to pick up the weapon from Isabella, bring it to your house as he had told Sophia that he would, and then we would stage an incident that would make everyone believe he had been shot and killed.
"But I called you," I said, remembering. "I called 911 and reported that my son had a weapon." "We know. We were monitoring your phones. When you called, we had to adapt our plan on the fly. We moved our timeline up, sent the uniformed officers in earlier than we had planned. But Benjamin knew what was happening. He knew that when he reached for the weapon, the officers would fire." "With blanks?" I said, understanding dawning. "With blanks. The officers who confronted Benjamin were our people, part of the operation. When they fired, it was blanks. The blood you saw was from blood packs Benjamin was wearing under his clothes, rigged to burst when he fell. The body the coroner took away was Benjamin, very much alive, who was immediately taken into protective custody." I sat there, trying to process this. My son hadn't died. The worst day of my life, the moment that had destroyed me, had been theater. Carefully orchestrated theater designed to fool everyone, including me. "The funeral," I said. "I went to his funeral. I saw the casket lowered into the ground." "The casket was empty," Detective Parker said gently. "I know how cruel that sounds, but we needed everyone, especially Sophia, Isabella, and Charlotte, to believe Benjamin was really dead. If even a whisper of doubt existed, if they suspected he might be alive, they would have changed their plans. We needed them to believe they had won, that Benjamin was out of the way, so they would continue with their conspiracy and we could catch them." "But why didn't you tell me?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Why did you let me grieve? Why did you let me spend 2 years thinking I had gotten my son killed?" "Because we couldn't risk Charlotte realizing the truth," Detective Parker said, her voice heavy with regret. "Richard, you're not a trained actor. You're not skilled at deception. If you had known Benjamin was alive, Charlotte would have sensed it. She's very, very good at reading people, at detecting inconsistencies. If you hadn't been genuinely grieving, she would have suspected something was wrong." "So you let me suffer," I said. "We let you suffer to keep you and Benjamin safe. I know that doesn't make it better. I know the pain you've experienced is real and terrible. But Richard, if Charlotte had suspected Benjamin was alive, if she had suspected we were onto her, she would have disappeared. And worse, she might have decided to accelerate her plans to harm you. We needed her to feel comfortable, to feel like she had all the time in the world to execute her con." I put my head in my hands, overwhelmed.
My son was alive. My son, who I had mourned for 2 years, who I had blamed myself for losing, was alive. "Where is he?" I asked, looking up suddenly. "Where is Benjamin right now?" "He's here," Detective Parker said with a small smile. "He's been waiting in another room, hoping we could tell you the truth tonight. He's been desperate to see you, Richard. These 2 years have been agony for him, too." "I want to see him," I said, standing up so quickly the chair scraped loudly against the floor. "Right now, I need to see him right now." "Of course," Detective Parker said, standing as well. "But Richard, before I bring him in, you need to understand something. Benjamin knows you hired a private investigator to follow him. He knows you called the police on him that day. He knows you suspected him of harming you, and he understands why. He doesn't blame you." "But I blame myself," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I know, and you two will have a lot to talk about. But right now, just focus on the fact that your son is alive. Everything else can be dealt with later." Detective Parker left the room, and I stood there, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. This couldn't be real. This had to be some kind of cruel trick or a dream I was about to wake up from. Then the door opened, and Benjamin walked in. He looked older than the last time I had seen him alive, 2 years ago. His face was thinner, his eyes shadowed with the strain of whatever he had been through. But he was real. He was solid. He was alive. "Dad," he said, his voice breaking on the word. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. I just stood there, staring at my son who was supposed to be dead, trying to convince my brain that this was really happening. "Dad, it's really me," Benjamin said, taking a step toward me. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for everything you've been through. I'm so sorry we had to do it this way." That broke through my paralysis. I crossed the room in 2 strides and pulled Benjamin into my arms, hugging him so tightly I was probably hurting him. He hugged me back just as hard, and we stood there, both of us crying, both of us shaking, holding on to each other like we were drowning, and the other was our only lifeline. "You're alive," I kept saying over and over. "You're alive. You're really alive. I'm alive, Dad. I'm here. I'm okay." We stayed like that for a long time, just holding each other, both of us sobbing. All the grief I had carried for 2 years, all the guilt, all the pain, it came pouring out in those tears. And mixed with it was relief so intense, it was almost painful. My son was alive. My son was here. I hadn't lost him after all. Finally, we pulled apart, both of us wiping our faces, both of us laughing at how much we were crying. "I can't believe this is real," I said, touching his face like I needed to confirm he was solid. "I buried you. I mourned you. I've been living with the guilt of getting you killed for 2 years." "I know, Dad, I know, and I'm so sorry. If there had been any other way, any way at all that didn't require you to think I was dead, I would have taken it. But Detective Parker was right. Those women needed to believe I was gone. And you needed to grieve believably for that to work." "Tell me everything," I said, sitting down because my legs were shaking too much to hold me up anymore. "Tell me what the past 2 years have been like for you." Benjamin sat across from me, and for the next hour, he told me his story. "After the shooting," he began, "they took me directly from the scene to a safe house. I had to stay there for 3 weeks while they processed the fake death certificate, arranged the funeral, made sure all the paperwork looked legitimate. Those 3 weeks were torture, Dad. I couldn't call you. I couldn't reach out. I could only watch news coverage and see pictures of you at my funeral, see how destroyed you looked and know I was responsible for that pain. Why so long? Why couldn't you tell me sooner? Because Charlotte was suspicious from the beginning. Detective Parker didn't tell you this, but Charlotte tried to get access to my body at the morgue. She told them she was my stepmother and wanted to pay her respects. They refused, following protocol, but it showed us how carefully she was watching. If anything had been off, if the coroner's report hadn't been perfect, if any detail had been wrong, she would have investigated. She suspected you might be alive?
She suspected something wasn't right. She's too smart not to notice when pieces don't fit perfectly. But eventually she accepted that I was dead. And once she did, once she relaxed and went back to executing her plan with you, I was moved into witness protection. Where did they send you? I asked.
I can't tell you specific details even now, Benjamin said. But it was a small town, nowhere near here. They gave me a new identity, a job at a local store, a tiny apartment, and for 2 years, I've been living this quiet, lonely life, waiting for the investigation to progress far enough that we could take everyone down. You've been alone this whole time? Mostly. I had handlers who would check in on me, who would give me updates about the investigation, but I couldn't make friends, couldn't form relationships, couldn't do anything that might create complications. It was like being in prison, except the cell was an entire small town, and I was there voluntarily. That sounds horrible, I said. It was necessary, Benjamin said. And honestly, Dad, the hardest part wasn't the isolation. It was knowing what you were going through. They gave me limited updates about you. They told me when you found my phone and discovered the truth about Sophia and Isabella. They told me about your depression. They told me when Charlotte and the others ramped up their manipulation. You knew about Charlotte? I knew before you did. The investigation into her started before I faked my death. They told me about her real identity, about her history, about how she had targeted you, and I had to watch from afar, unable to warn you, unable to protect you, knowing you were living with a woman who was planning to harm you. His voice broke. There were so many times I wanted to break cover, times when I heard about how depressed you were, how isolated. I wanted to call you, to tell you I was alive, to give you some hope. But I couldn't, because if I did, everyone would be at risk. I understand, I said, reaching across the table to take his hand. I hate it, but I understand. The worst part, Benjamin continued, was the boys, my sons. I've missed 2 years of their lives, Dad. When I went into witness protection, they were 18 months old. Now they're almost 4. They've grown and changed and learned to talk, and I haven't been there for any of it. They've been with Sophia's parents, I said. I know, and I'm grateful they've been safe and cared for, but they don't remember me anymore. They were too young when I died to retain memories. I'm going to have to introduce myself to my own children and try to build a relationship with them from scratch. You'll do it, I assured him. You're their father. Once you spend time with them, once they see how much you love them, they'll bond with you. I hope so, Benjamin said. Because honestly, Dad, the thought of getting to be a full-time father to them is one of the things that kept me going during the past 2 years. That and the thought of finally being able to have a real relationship with you again. About that, I said, needing to address the elephant in the room. Benjamin, I'm so sorry I doubted you. I'm sorry I hired a private investigator to follow you. I'm sorry I called the police that day. I should have trusted you. I should have come to you directly and asked you to explain. Dad, stop, Benjamin said firmly. You did exactly what any reasonable person would have done. I had lied to you about my mother being dead. You overheard conversations that sounded incriminating. A private investigator photographed me receiving a weapon. Everything pointed to me being involved in something dangerous. You were trying to protect yourself and your family. I don't blame you for any of it. But you were wrong about me. You were wrong about my intentions, yes, but your reasoning was sound. And Dad, if the police hadn't shown up that day, the plan would still have worked. I would have come to you, shown you the weapon and the recordings, and we would have gone to the police together. The staged shooting just moved up our timeline. Did it hurt? When they fired the blanks, did it hurt? The blanks themselves, no. But I was wearing blood packs that were designed to burst with impact, and those were attached with small charges. So when the blank was fired, the charges detonated the blood packs, and that hurt, like being punched really hard in the chest. But it was manageable. I've experienced worse. I hate that you had to go through any of it, I said. I hate that you had to think I was dead, Benjamin countered. But Dad, we both did what we had to do. You tried to protect yourself from what you thought was a threat. I tried to protect you from a real threat. We were both acting out of love, even if the circumstances were terrible. We sat in comfortable silence for a moment, just looking at each other, both of us still processing the reality that we were together again. What happens now? I asked finally. With the investigation, with the arrests, with everything? Now we move forward with prosecution, Benjamin said. Charlotte, Sophia, Isabella, and the 4 crew members are all facing serious charges. Detective Parker says they have overwhelming evidence. Surveillance footage, financial records, testimony from other victims, and my recordings that prove the conspiracy. Will you have to testify? Yes, at all of their trials. I'm the key witness who can tie everything together. My recordings of Sophia and Isabella, my testimony about what they were planning, my first-hand account of their manipulation. Without me, they might have been able to claim everything was a misunderstanding. With me, there's no room for doubt. Won't that be hard? Facing Charlotte in court? Probably, Benjamin admitted. I loved her once, or at least I thought I did. Finding out that she never loved me, that she married me specifically to con me, that's something I'm still processing. But she chose her path, and now she has to face the consequences. What about the triplets? What happens to them while all this is going on? That's something I need to talk to you about, Benjamin said, his expression becoming serious. Charlotte is going to prison, almost certainly. Her parents are elderly and not really able to handle 3 energetic boys full-time, which means I need to petition for full custody. You'll get it, I said with certainty. You're their biological father. You've been cleared of any wrongdoing. No court would deny you custody. I hope you're right, but Dad, being a single father to triplets is going to be incredibly challenging. I'm going to need help, a lot of help. And I was hoping, he trailed off, looking hopefully at me. You were hoping I could help you, I finished for him. If you're willing, Benjamin said quickly. I know I have no right to ask after everything that's happened. I know you've been through hell because of decisions I made. But Dad, I don't have anyone else. It's just you and me and the boys. We're a family, and I need my family right now. Of course I'll help you, I said immediately. Benjamin, there's nothing I want more than to be part of my grandchildren's lives. I've missed so much already. I'm not missing any more. Benjamin's relief was visible. Thank you. Thank you so much. I've been so worried about how I was going to manage everything on my own. You're not on your own, I assured him. You have me, and once we get the boys settled, we're going to build the family life we should have had all along. No lies, no manipulation, no conspiracies. Just us being honest with each other and loving each other. I'd like that, Benjamin said, smiling for the first time since he walked into the room. Detective Parker returned then, knocking softly before entering. I'm sorry to interrupt, but there are some legal matters we need to address while we're all here.
Over the next hour, she walked us through what would happen next. Benjamin would be officially brought out of witness protection, his death certificate would be voided, he would reclaim his identity and his life. There would be media attention, of course, because the story was sensational, but the police would help manage that as much as possible. The trials would begin in a few months. Charlotte would face the most serious charges, including reopening the case about Vincent Coleman's children. With Isabella's testimony and the evidence they had gathered, Detective Parker was confident they could prove Charlotte had orchestrated those deaths. Sophia would face conspiracy charges related to the plot against me, as well as fraud charges related to her marriage to Benjamin. Isabella would get a reduced sentence in exchange for a testimony, but she would still spend significant time in prison.
And the 4 crew members would all face fraud charges and likely spend 5 to 10 years behind bars. "What about other victims?" I asked. "You said Charlotte has done this before." "We're reaching out to them now," Detective Parker said. "Once Charlotte's arrest becomes public, we expect more people to come forward. She's operated for over 20 years, Mr. Brooks. There could be dozens of victims. This case is going to be huge." "Good," I said firmly. "She should pay for everything she's done. They all should." When we finally left the police station, it was nearly dawn. Benjamin and I stood in the parking lot, watching the sun come up, neither of us quite ready to separate after being reunited. "Come home with me," I said suddenly. "I don't want to be alone right now, and I'm guessing you don't either." "Are you sure? I could get a hotel." "I'm sure. Come home. We'll have breakfast, we'll talk more, and we'll start figuring out what comes next." Benjamin agreed, and we drove separately to my house. The house where I had lived with Charlotte and her fake children. The house where I had been manipulated and deceived. Walking into it now, knowing the truth, it felt different, tainted. "I'm going to sell this place," I said as we entered. "I can't live here anymore. Too many bad memories." "Where will you go?" Benjamin asked. "I don't know yet. Maybe we can look for a place together. Something big enough for you and the boys, with space for me to have my own area, an actual family home." "I'd like that. A fresh start for all of us." I made coffee while Benjamin sat at the kitchen table, looking around at the space that had been so familiar to me but was foreign to him. "It's strange being here," he admitted. "This house represents 2 years of your life that I wasn't part of. 2 years where these people were pretending to be your family while I was in hiding." "None of it was real," I said, bringing him coffee. "The only real family I have is you, and soon, the boys." We talked until late morning, processing everything that had happened, making plans for the future. Benjamin would stay with me temporarily while we arranged to get custody of the triplets. We would both see therapists to help process the trauma we had experienced. We would work together to rebuild our relationship on a foundation of complete honesty. "Dad," Benjamin said at one point, "I need you to know something. When I thought I was going to expose Sophia and Isabella that day, when I thought I was going to protect you and make everything right, I was doing it because I love you. Not because I wanted the inheritance back, not because I wanted money, but because you're my father and you raised me and you sacrificed everything for me, and I couldn't let those women hurt you." "I know," I said. "I understand that now. And I need you to know that I've spent every day of the past 2 years wishing I could go back and change what happened at my wedding. I wish I had never believed Isabella's lies. I wish I had come to you and asked for your side of the story. I wish I hadn't pushed you away and humiliated you in front of everyone you knew." "Benjamin, let me finish," he said. "I need to say this. I was young and stupid and desperate to believe that my mother loved me. I wanted so badly to think there was a good reason she left, a reason that wasn't just that she didn't want me. So when she told me you were the villain, I believed it because it was easier than accepting that she was. I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry for hurting you, and I'm sorry you had to carry that pain for so long." "I forgive you," I said simply. "I forgave you 2 years ago when I found your phone and realized what you were really trying to do. The anger I felt at the wedding, the hurt from being pushed away, all of that dissolved when I learned the truth. You were trying to protect me, Benjamin. You were being the son I raised you to be. There's nothing to forgive." We both had tears in our eyes again. It seemed like we would be crying a lot in the days to come as we worked through everything that had happened. "What about the $5 million, Benjamin asked. "The money you gave me after I came back. Is it still in the trust you set up?" "Yes, I haven't touched it." "Why?" "I want to do something meaningful with it. I was thinking about the Vincent Coleman Center, the orphanage that you built. Maybe we could use some of that money to expand it, add more facilities, as a way of honoring Vincent and also honoring what you've done for orphan children." "You'd want to do that?" I asked, surprised. "I would. Vincent gave us so much, Dad. He changed our lives. And these past 2 years have taught me that family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up for you, who loves you, who sacrifices for you. You showed up for me my whole life. Vincent showed up for both of us when we needed it. Now maybe we can show up for kids who need it. I think that's a beautiful idea. And I think Vincent would be proud. Over the following weeks, life slowly began to normalize, though our new normal was very different from anything I had experienced before. Benjamin officially came out of witness protection. The media went crazy when the news broke that he was alive. "Man fakes death to catch conspiracy," the headlines read. We were contacted by dozens of news outlets, all wanting interviews, all wanting the full story. We declined most of them, giving only one carefully controlled interview to a reputable journalist who promised to tell the story accurately. The public reaction was overwhelming. Some people called Benjamin a hero for his role in taking down Charlotte's operation. Others criticized the police for letting me believe my son was dead. Still others focused on the romantic angle, calling it the betrayal wedding, and making it into entertainment rather than the trauma that it actually was. We tried to ignore most of it and focus on what mattered: getting custody of the triplets. Sophia fought the custody petition at first, even from jail. Her lawyer argued that she was still her mother, that she had done nothing to harm them directly, that they should remain with their parents under her supervision. But the evidence against her was overwhelming. Once it came out that she had married Benjamin specifically to con him, that she had plotted against me, that she had been working with known criminals, the judge had no sympathy. Benjamin was awarded full custody. I was there in the courtroom when it happened, watching my son's face light up with joy and relief. We were going to get the boys. We were going to be a real family.
The day we picked up the triplets from Sophia's parents was emotional for everyone. Samuel, Albert, and Frederick were now 3.5 years old, actual little people with personalities and opinions and preferences. They didn't remember Benjamin at all, and they were confused and scared about being taken away from the only home they had known. Sophia's parents were elderly and exhausted. They had done their best with the boys, but 3 active toddlers were more than they could handle long term. They seemed relieved to be handing over responsibility, though they cried as they said goodbye. Benjamin knelt down to the boys' level, his voice gentle. "Hi, guys. I'm your daddy. I know you don't remember me, but I love you very much, and I'm going to take such good care of you." Samuel, always the cautious one, even at 3, eyed him suspiciously. "Where's Mommy?" "Mommy can't be here right now," Benjamin said carefully. We had discussed how to handle questions about Sophia, and we had decided to keep explanations age-appropriate and honest without giving them more than they could process. "But you're going to come live with me and your Grandpa Richard, and we're going to have so much fun together." "Grandpa?" Albert asked, looking at me with curiosity. "That's me," I said, kneeling down too. "I'm your grandpa, and I've been waiting so long to spend time with you boys." Frederick, the most outgoing of the 3, walked right up to me and studied my face seriously. "Do you have toys?" I laughed. "I have lots of toys, and we're going to get even more." That seemed to satisfy him. "Okay, I'll come." It wasn't a perfect transition. The boys were confused and upset for the first few days, asking for their grandmother and grandfather, asking when they were going home. But Benjamin was patient and loving, and I did everything I could to help. We established routines. We read bedtime stories. We played endless games. Slowly, the boys started to relax and accept their new reality. Within a few weeks, they were calling Benjamin Daddy naturally. They started running to him when he came home, showing him things they had built or drawn, seeking his approval and attention. The bond that had been broken by 2 years of absence was rebuilding, and it was beautiful to watch. And they bonded with me too. I was Grandpa, the person who always had time to play, who gave them treats, who told them stories about their daddy when he was young. I finally got to be the grandfather I had always wanted to be, and it healed something in me I didn't even know was broken.
We found a new house together, a large property with a big backyard where the boys could run and play. Benjamin and the boys had their own section of the house, giving them privacy and space to be a family unit. I had my own area, a suite with a bedroom, bathroom, and small living space where I could retreat when I needed quiet. But we shared common areas, eating meals together, spending evenings together, truly functioning as a family. The trials began 6 months after the arrests. Charlotte's was first, and it was a media circus. The prosecution laid out her entire history of cons, bringing in victim after victim who testified about how she had deceived them. The revelation that she had likely orchestrated the deaths of Vincent Coleman's children was particularly damning. Isabella testified against her sister, providing details about their operation and confirming Charlotte's role in various crimes. It was clear she was trying to save herself, but her testimony was corroborated by so much other evidence that it didn't matter whether she was trustworthy or not. I testified about how Charlotte had targeted me, manipulated me, and infiltrated my life. Benjamin testified about his role in the investigation and what he had learned about the conspiracy. Together, our testimony helped paint a complete picture of Charlotte's evil. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all counts. Charlotte was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. As she was led out of the courtroom, she looked at me one last time, her face twisted with hatred. I looked back at her calmly, refusing to give her the satisfaction of seeing any emotion from me. Sophia's trial was next. Her lawyer tried to argue that she had been manipulated by Isabella and Charlotte, that she was more victim than perpetrator. But the recordings Benjamin had made, the meetings she had attended, the plans she had discussed, all pointed to willing participation. She was convicted of conspiracy and fraud and sentenced to 15 years in prison. Isabella, despite her cooperation, still received a 10-year sentence. The crew members, Samuel, Amelia, Olivia, and Emma, received varying sentences from 5 to 12 years, depending on their level of involvement in different cons. Justice had been served. It didn't undo the harm they had caused, but it meant they wouldn't be able to hurt anyone else. With the trials behind us, Benjamin and I could finally focus fully on healing and moving forward. We both saw therapists, processing the trauma of the past few years. We had honest conversations about the wedding day, about the fake death, about all the ways that we had both been hurt and manipulated. I think what helped me most was realizing that we were both victims of other people's evil. You didn't betray me, I didn't betray you. We were just trying to protect each other while navigating an impossible situation. I agree, I said. We were playing a game where we didn't know the rules and the deck was stacked against us from the start. But we survived, Benjamin said. We made it through. And now we're here, together with the boys, building something real and good. We are, I agreed. And Benjamin, I need you to know something. These past months, living with you and the boys, being a family again, it's been the happiest I've been in years. Maybe the happiest I've ever been. Even with everything we went through to get here? Even with that, because we went through it together, in our own ways. We both fought for each other even when we didn't fully understand what we were fighting against, and now we're reaping the rewards of that fight. The triplets ran up to us then, demanding we come see the castle they had built in the sandbox. We followed them, praising their creation, helping them add to it. These simple moments, playing with my grandchildren while my son laughed beside me, were everything I had ever wanted. As the boys grew older, we told them age-appropriate versions of their story. We explained that their mother had made bad choices and was in timeout for a very long time. We told them about how their daddy had been very brave and helped catch bad people. We made sure they understood that families come in all shapes and sizes, and that ours was built on love and honesty. We expanded the Vincent Coleman Center. using the money that Benjamin had wanted to contribute and adding more from my own resources. We created a section specifically for children who had lost parents to incarceration, understanding their unique struggles. The center became a true legacy for Vincent, helping hundreds of children find safety, education, and hope. 2 years after Benjamin came out of witness protection, 4 years after his fake death, we held a ceremony at the Vincent Coleman Center. We unveiled a new plaque that included Benjamin's name alongside Vincent's and mine, recognizing his sacrifice and his role in protecting not just me, but potentially countless future victims of Charlotte's schemes. "Vincent would be proud of you," I told Benjamin as we looked at the plaque. "He'd be proud of both of us." I think he'd mostly be proud that we didn't let the bad guys win, that we kept fighting for what was right even when it was hard. Speaking of fighting for what's right, I have something for you.
I pulled out an envelope and handed it to Benjamin. He opened it and found a check for $50 million. "Dad, what is this?" he asked, shocked. "It's the inheritance I should have given you at your wedding," I said. "The $50 million that was always meant for you. I've kept it invested and growing all these years. Now it's time for you to have it." "Dad, I don't need this," Benjamin protested. "I have the $5 million. I have my job. The boys and I are doing fine." "I know you don't need it," I said, "but you deserve it. Vincent wanted you to have it. He loved you like a grandson, and he would want you to have security and options and the ability to build whatever life you want for yourself and the boys." "But the orphanage will continue to be funded by my other resources," I interrupted. "This money is yours, Benjamin. It always was. I only held on to it because I was waiting for the right moment to give it to you. Well, this is that moment. You've proven yourself in every possible way. You've shown courage and integrity and love. Take the money. Use it to give the boys the best life possible. Use it to build the future you want. Use it to honor Vincent's legacy." Benjamin looked at the check, tears forming in his eyes. "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything," I said firmly. "You earned this, son. Not through inheritance or luck, but through being the kind of man who would fake his own death to protect his father. The kind of man who would spend 2 years in isolation to ensure justice was served. The kind of man who would fight for his children and his family, no matter what the cost." Benjamin pulled me into a hug. "Thank you, Dad. Thank you for everything. For raising me, for believing in me, for standing by me even when you didn't understand what I was doing. Thank you for being the best father anyone could ask for." "Thank you for being my son," I said, hugging him back. "Thank you for surviving. Thank you for coming back to me. Thank you for giving me the chance to be a grandfather to those 3 incredible boys." We stood there for a while, father and son, both of us understanding that we had been given something precious, a second chance. A chance to build the relationship we should have had all along, free from manipulation and lies and schemes. Now, as I finish telling you this story, sitting here 5 years after Benjamin came out of witness protection, I want to share what I've learned from this entire experience. I learned that greed destroys everything it touches. Charlotte, Sophia, and Isabella all had opportunities to live honest lives, but they chose greed instead. They chose to hurt people, to manipulate people, to even take lives, all for money. And in the end, they lost everything. Their freedom, their relationships, their futures, all sacrificed on the altar of greed. I learned that trust is precious, but should be earned. I trusted Charlotte too quickly because I was vulnerable and lonely. I didn't ask enough questions. I didn't verify her story. I let my need for family and love override my common sense. But I also learned that there's a difference between healthy skepticism and paranoid suspicion. I shouldn't have trusted Charlotte blindly, but I also shouldn't have suspected Benjamin without talking to him first.
I learned that real family isn't about blood or biology. It's about who shows up, who sacrifices, who stays when things get hard. Vincent wasn't my biological father, but he was more of a father to me than my own parents could have been. Benjamin could have abandoned me after I pushed him away at this wedding, but instead, he spent months gathering evidence to protect me. The triplets could have resented me as the grandfather they never knew, but instead, they welcomed me into their lives with open hearts. I learned that sometimes the right thing is the hardest thing. Benjamin did the right thing by faking his death to catch the criminals, but it cost both of us 2 years of pain. I did the right thing by calling the police when I thought I was in danger, even though it led to my son's apparent death. We both made the best choices we could with the information and resources we had, and we both had to live with the consequences of those choices. Most importantly, I learned that healing is possible. Even after betrayal, even after loss, even after trauma, we can heal. It takes time. It takes therapy and honest conversation and forgiveness, both of ourselves and others, but it's possible. Benjamin and I are proof of that. Today, the triplets are 8 years old. Samuel is serious and studious, already talking about becoming a doctor when he grows up. Albert is adventurous and athletic, always the first one to try something new. Frederick is charming and funny, making everyone around him laugh with his jokes and stories. They're good kids. Happy kids. Loved kids. They know their mother is in prison, but they understand it in an age-appropriate way. They know their daddy and grandpa love them more than anything. They know they're safe and secure and valued. Benjamin is thriving. He used some of the $50 million to start a foundation that helps children of incarcerated parents, understanding their unique struggles from watching his own sons navigate their mother's imprisonment. He's dating again carefully this time, and he's found someone kind and genuine who loves him and the boys. And me? I'm at peace. Real peace. Not the forced contentment I tried to manufacture when I was with Charlotte, but genuine happiness. I spend my days working at the Vincent Coleman Center, playing with my grandchildren, having dinner with my son. Simple pleasures that mean everything because I almost lost them. The house we bought together has become a real home, filled with laughter and love and the chaos that comes with 3 energetic boys. Sometimes I'll be sitting on the porch watching Benjamin play with the boys in the yard, and I'll be overwhelmed with gratitude. Grateful that my son is alive. Grateful that I get to be part of my grandchildren's lives. Grateful that we survived the evil that tried to destroy us. People sometimes ask me if I'm angry about the 2 years I spent thinking Benjamin was dead, if I resent the police for not telling me the truth sooner, if I'm bitter about the time I lost with him and the boys. The answer is complicated. Yes, those 2 years were agony. Yes, I wish I could have known the truth. Yes, I regret every moment I spent grieving unnecessarily. But I also understand why it had to be that way. My genuine grief sold the deception to Charlotte and the others. My pain kept me safe by keeping them convinced, and in the end, it led to justice. Would I do it again if I had the choice? Probably not. But I didn't have the choice. None of us did. We all just did the best we could with impossible circumstances. Now let me ask you, the people who have followed this story through all 3 parts, what would you have done? If you discovered your new spouse was a con artist who had targeted you for your money, would you have suspected it sooner? Would you have been more cautious about who you let into your life? If you were Benjamin, would you have agreed to fake your death to catch the criminals? Would you have been willing to let your father suffer for 2 years to ensure justice was served? If you were me, would you have forgiven Benjamin for believing his mother's lies at the wedding? Would you have given him the full inheritance after everything that happened? These aren't easy questions. There are no perfect answers. Life is complicated. People are flawed.
and we all just do the best we can with the information and resources we have. But I can tell you this, the most important thing in life is love. Real love. The kind that shows up, the kind that sacrifices, the kind that endures even when everything else falls apart. Charlotte taught me what fake love looks like. It's charming and attentive and says all the right things, but it's hollow underneath. It's manipulation disguised as affection. Benjamin taught me what real love looks like. It's messy and imperfect and sometimes makes mistakes, but it's genuine. It's sacrificial. If you take nothing else from this story, take this. Be careful who you trust, but don't be so guarded that you can't love. Verify people's stories, but don't let past betrayals make you paranoid about everyone. Protect yourself, but stay open to real connection. And remember that greed destroys everything it touches. Every single person in this story who chose money over people ended up in prison, or dead, or alone. Charlotte chose Vincent's money over human decency and ended up with a life sentence. Isabella chose greed over her own son and lost her freedom. Sophia chose potential wealth over genuine love and lost her children. Meanwhile, Benjamin chose protecting me over protecting himself and gained everything. I chose building the orphanage over keeping all the money and gained purpose and peace. Vincent chose giving his fortune to someone who would use it well over hoarding it and created a legacy that's still helping people today. Money isn't evil, but the love of money, the willingness to hurt people to get it, that destroys everything. Before I finish, I want to share one more thing. Last week, Samuel, my grandson, not the fake Samuel who was really an adult con artist, but my real grandson, asked me a question. "Grandpa," he said, "why did those bad people want to hurt you?" "Because they wanted something I had, buddy," I explained. "They wanted money, and they were willing to do very bad things to get it." He thought about that for a moment, his little face serious. "But, Grandpa, you have lots of money, and you're not bad. So money doesn't make you bad, right?" "Right," I said. "Money is just a tool. It's what you do with it that matters. You can use money to hurt people or help people. The bad people wanted to use it to hurt, but your daddy and I try to use it to help. Like the orphanage? Exactly like the orphanage." "Then I want to help too when I grow up," Samuel declared. "I want to use money to help people, not hurt them." That conversation reminded me why I'm telling this story. Not just to warn people about con artists or to share my pain and healing, but to remind everyone that we have choices. Every day we choose what kind of people we're going to be. We choose whether we'll let greed control us or whether we'll let love guide us. Charlotte and her crew chose greed. They chose manipulation and lies and cruelty, and they lost everything. Benjamin and I chose love. We chose honesty and sacrifice and fighting for each other. And we gained everything that truly matters. So as you go forward from hearing this story, I want you to ask yourself, what will you choose? When you're faced with an opportunity to gain something through hurting someone, will you take it? When you're faced with a choice between easy money and doing what's right, which will you choose? I hope you'll choose love. I hope you'll choose integrity. I hope you'll choose being the kind of person who builds others up rather than tearing them down. And I hope you'll remember that no matter how dark things get, healing is possible. Second chances are possible. Real family is possible. Benjamin and I are living proof of that. Thank you for staying with me through this long, complicated, painful, and ultimately hopeful story. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring. If this story has moved you, if it's made you think, if it's taught you something, please subscribe to Precifi Stories. We have over 80 other videos on this channel, each one telling a different story about real people facing impossible choices. Like this video if it resonated with you. Share it with someone who needs to hear this message about greed, trust, family, and the possibility of healing even after devastating betrayal. And leave a comment below. Tell me what you would have done in my position. Tell me what lessons you're taking from this story. Tell me about your own experiences with betrayal, or healing, or second chances. I read every comment, and your stories matter to me. Most importantly, go hug your real family. The people who show up for you. The people who sacrifice for you. The people who love you not for what you have, but for who you are. Tell them you love them. Tell them you appreciate them. Don't wait until you almost lose them to realize how precious they are. Life is short. Evil is real. But love is stronger than both. Choose love. Choose truth. Choose family. And never ever let greed blind you to what really matters. My name is Richard Brooks, and this has been my story. The story of how I lost everything and gained it back. The story of how my son died and came back to life. The story of evil tried to destroy us, and love saved us instead. May you never face what we faced. But if you do, may you have the courage to keep fighting, the wisdom to choose right over easy, and the love to heal when the fighting is done. Thank you. God bless you. And remember, real family always finds its way back to each other. Always. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.